Who's your biggest competitor?
Senator, we have a lot of competitors.
Who's your biggest?
I think the categories of, do you want just one? I'm not sure I can give one, but can I give a bunch? So there are three categories that I would focus on. One are the other tech platforms, so Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. We overlap with them in different ways.
Do they provide the same service you provide?
In different ways, different parts of it, yes.
Let me put it this way. If I buy a Ford and it doesn't work well and I don't like it, I can buy a Chevy. If I'm upset with Facebook, what's the equivalent product that I can go sign up for?
Well, there's the second category that I was going to talk about.
I'm not talking about categories. I'm talking about, is there real competition you face? Because car companies face a lot of competition. If they make a defective car, it gets out in the world, people stop buying that car, they buy another one. Is it an alternative to Facebook in the private sector?
Yes, Senator. The average American uses 8 different apps to communicate with their friends and stay in touch with people, ranging from texting apps to email.
The same service you provide?
Well, we provide a number of different services.
Is Twitter the same as what you do?
It overlaps with a portion of what we do.
You don't think you have a monopoly?
It certainly doesn't feel like that to me.
Okay. So it doesn't. So Instagram, you bought Instagram. Why did you buy Instagram?
Because they were very talented app developers who were making good use of our platform and understood our values.
It was a good business decision. My point is that one way to regulate a company is through competition, through government regulation. Here's the question that all of us got to answer. What do we tell our constituents, given what's happened here, why we should let you self-regulate?
Geologic evidence suggests large bodies, possibly comets, have already plowed into our planet, destroying many of Earth's creatures.
The entire mountain swells, which means that the outer slopes get steeper. There are probably a succession of small earthquakes, and then maybe a big earthquake that shakes loose this very steep western flank of the volcano.
Almost 1,500 cubic kilometers of earth and rock plummet into the sea. On impact, the land displaces a massive amount of water. The ocean rushes back to fill the giant gap. From this cataclysmic disturbance emerges the tsunami, heading directly for Honolulu. Estimated time to impact, 30 minutes.
This is the direction that a big tsunami would come from the Big Island.
The wave first becomes visible as it stands and breaks on a shallow bank, 40 kilometers southeast of Honolulu.
You'd see the sea rear up in front of you. It would be huge. It would rise up above you the size of a building, the size of a 10-story building.
Surging inland at up to 70 kilometers per hour, the tsunami slams Honolulu. Because the tsunami's energy stretches down to the ocean floor, this wave is not clean water. It's filled with sand, coral, and rock. Water penetrates 16 kilometers inland before being sucked back out to sea in a lethal maelstrom of wreckage. It annihilates nearly everyone and everything in its path.
Do you believe in God?
Me?
Creator?
Yeah, so the more I look at the universe, just the less convinced I am that there is something benevolent going on. So if your concept of a creator is someone who's all powerful and all good, that's not an uncommon pairing of powers that you might describe to a creator. All powerful and all good. And I look at disasters that afflict Earth and life on Earth. Volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, disease, pestilence, congenital birth defects. You look at this list of ways that life is made miserable on Earth by natural causes. And I just ask, how do you deal with that? So philosophers rose up and said, if there is a God, God is either not all powerful or not all good. I have no problems if, as we probe the origins of things, we bump up into the bearded man. If that shows up, we're good to go. Okay? Not a problem. There's just no evidence of it. And this is why religions are called faiths, collectively. Because you believe something in the absence of evidence. That's what it is. That's why it's called faith. Otherwise, we would call all religions evidence. But we don't, for exactly that reason. So I'm given what everyone describes to be the properties that would be expressed by an all-powerful being in the gods that they worship. I look for that in the universe and I don't find it. So I remain unconvinced. But if you've got some good evidence, bring it, bring it, okay? And so I don't lead with that information because what I believe should be irrelevant to anyone. It's not about me. It's about the real world.
Jesuits have played many a major role in church history. Number one Jesuit today is the amiable Father General, Vladimir Ledachowski, who is known far and wide as the Black Pope.
Born Inigo Lopez de la Hoya in 1491, the man known as Ignatius of Loyola was the youngest of 13 children. Despite the misfortune of losing his mother at a young age, he was still a member of the local aristocracy and was raised accordingly. He became ambitious as a youth and wanted to be a great general. By the time he was 18, he had become a soldier. He began referring to himself as Ignatius, a more mature version of his name. He gained a reputation as a duelist. According to one story, he killed a Moor with whom he argued about the divinity of Christ.
Certainly, I cannot lead the society under years of personal decay. After the age of 80, you start the process of decay. I prefer to leave the job when I still retain my senses and not wait until Jesuits start asking themselves, this old man in Rome is still there? This is not very positive. You have to do things with certain clarity, and it's better to start preparing things now.
Have you ever heard of blue laws? Essentially, they're a throwback to an older time when businesses were not allowed to be open on holidays and Sundays.
But some blue laws are still in effect today. Tonight, News Intervene's Hannah Deneen explains how these laws impact how you can shop on Thanksgiving Day.
Who were the Khazars, and where did they come from? This is a question that has many general answers, but not many specific ones. Most scholars in the field believe that the Khazars were a predominantly Turkic-speaking people who likely originated from the steppes of Central Asia or the Ural Mountains. However, the specifics of these origins are still somewhat obscure due to the fact that they left few archaeological remains from their early years. There have, though, been many conflicting writers and historians who have speculated on Khazar origins. For example, one of their contemporaries from the early 9th century, the Greek historian and monk Theophanes, called the Khazars Eastern Turks. The Arab chronicler and historian Al-Masudi wrote in the 10th century that, and I quote, "The Khazars are a tribe of the Turks."
ישנה מסורת שכאשר דוד המלך היה יוצא לקרב, היה יוצא עם מגן שהיו מצוירים עליו שני משולשים. משולש ישר ומשולש הפוך זה על גבי זה, ולכן התרשים הזה נקרא בשם מגן דוד.
Rancorous debate over the undocumented. For some, fears of immigrant crime. For others, calls for compassion and sanctuary. It might sound like the United States, but we're talking about Israel. Derek Stoffel has a story from a country that built a wall and already has tough borders and still faces a familiar clash over who belongs. Tonight's dispatch is from Tel Aviv.
They come every morning to this immigration office near Tel Aviv to find out their fate. Inside, Israeli immigration officials are offering some of these African men a stark choice. They can leave Israel, be deported to an undisclosed country in Africa, along with a check for $3,500 and a plane ticket, or stay but be locked up in prison.
We drove out to Holot from Tel Aviv. It's in the middle of the Negev desert, and it took us 3 hours to get there. Holot is in a military zone. The silence of the desert is frequently broken by the sound of explosions and Air Force jets flying overhead.
The government calls this an open stay centre, but it's run by the prison service and conditions are strict. At night time there's a curfew, so residents have to report back by 10 p.m. They're not allowed to work either, and in such an isolated area, there are very few things to do during the day.
Nowhere does the Charter arrogate the right to some to sit in judgment over others in carrying out this universal obligation. In that regard, we reject the politicization of this important issue and the application of double standards to victimize those who dare think and act independently of the self-anointed prefects of our time. We equally reject attempts to prescribe new rights that are contrary to our values, norms, traditions, and beliefs. We are not gays. Towards Agenda 2063, unquote. We reiterate our unwavering support to the just cause of the Palestinian people. Do we agree, Mr. United States? We also reiterate that lasting peace in the Middle East can only be achieved through negotiations to achieve a two-state solution based on the pre-1967 borders.
And we must still look forward, alas, to blood and sweat. We have a terrific task ahead of us. We have a shattered world around us, and we must help to rebuild it. We must strive for a sane and just peace, which will save us all and our children from the constant fear of war. Our trade and industry must be restored to a sound peacetime footing so as to ensure steady employment for all. We must strive to give everybody greater security against poverty, unemployment, sickness, and old age.
I am delighted to be back in Camberwell again, especially so because I'm here to open this splendid block of flats.
You took out a full-page ad in major U.S. newspapers last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country, because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
What do you think of this year's presidential race, the way it's shaping up?
Well, it's going to be very interesting. I think that probably George Bush has an advantage in terms of the election. I think that probably people would say that he's got like that little edge in terms of the incumbency, et cetera, et cetera. But I think Jesse Jackson's done himself very proud. I think Michael Dukakis has done one hell of a job. And George Bush has done a hell of a job. You know, they all went in there sort of as semi-underdogs, including George Bush, and they've all come out. I think people that are around all three of those candidates can be very proud of the jobs they've done.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined, I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off. And I can't promise you everything, but I can tell you one thing, this country would make one hell of a lot of money from those people that for 25 years have taken advantage. It wouldn't be the way it's been, believe me.
Yeah. So what if the guy threw a shoe at me? And we'll continue to work together to achieve peace. That's what we want. Freedom and peace.
Then Pope Francis came to greet President Trump, and the two exchanged initial words. While there was no White House interpreter present, Monsignor Mark Miles from the Vatican was inside the 30-minute private meeting the two leaders held. Meanwhile, Melania and Ivanka Trump were waiting outside in their traditional black and veil, which is seen as a diplomatic gesture. When Melania entered to greet the Holy Father, the two exchanged some words before he blessed a rosary for her.
What do you give him to eat? Is it
As for the gifts, Trump gave the Pope a series of books.
Thank you.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when it happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
The Pope, on the other hand, had a theme with his gifts, peace. He gifted him the medallion representing peace,
made by a Roman artist. And it's the olive tree, which is a symbol of the peace, with two branches. We have the division of war in the middle, and the olive tree is slowly trying to bring them together in peace. We can use peace. Whether any more will satisfy. That is my desire that this can be another for peace. And this is the message of peace every year, and he signed it personally for you. It's the message of peace of this year. It's so beautiful. Thank you very much, Santiago. And there are 3 books here. letters that I sent to all Catholics about family, on the joy of the gospel, and on care of our common home environment. I'll be reading them while I listen.
When leaving, Melania had to be told to salute the Pope before she accidentally said goodbye in French.
I'm going to visit the hospital. Thank you so much.
Trump said goodbye to the Pope with many thank yous and a firm handshake before saying this.
Thank you very much. I won't forget what you said. Anything I can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Americans have always come to the aid of their fellow countrymen. Friend helping friend, neighbor helping neighbor, stranger helping stranger. We've seen it perhaps more so than at any time, so vividly at least, during Hurricane Harvey. From the beginning of our nation, Americans have joined together in prayer during times of great need to ask for God's blessing and God's guidance. When we look across Texas and Louisiana, we see the American spirit of service embodied by countless men and women. Brave first responders have rescued those stranded in drowning cars and rising water, and I have to tell you that I've watched the Coast Guard. Thousands of lives have been saved by our great Coast Guard. They have done incredible work in the most vicious seas that they've seen in many, many years. Families have given food and shelter to those in need. Houses of worship have organized efforts to clean up communities and repair damaged homes. People have never seen anything quite like this. Individuals of every background are striving for the same goal, to aid and comfort people facing devastating losses. As Americans, we know that no challenge is too great for us to overcome. No challenge. We invite all Americans to join us as we continue to pray for those who have lost family members and friends, and for those who are suffering from this great crisis. And behind me, we have faith-based people who are highly respected, and especially so in their communities where they're not only respected, but they're loved. Evangelical leaders, Christian leaders, many people of faith. And I just want to thank you all for being with us today, because we're going to be signing a day of prayer, and that'll be on Sunday. It'll be a very special day, and I don't know when this was done last, but it's been a long time ago.
Yes.
Is that a correct statement?
Right.
It's been a long time ago. So I'm going to sign it, and then a few of the folks will say a few words, and Pastor Jeffress will say a prayer for not only the people so affected, so horribly affected by Hurricane Harvey, but for the people of our nation, and in fact, the people of our world. Yes. Okay? Okay. So this is going to all of you. You're all going to get one of them.
Overnight, anger and anguish after another police shooting. This time, 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant in Columbus, Ohio.
Get down!
On Wednesday, the city released more body cam video capturing Bryant's final moments.
Regardless of the circumstances, a 16-year-old girl lost her life yesterday.
Police say the teen was threatening two other girls with a knife. Officer Nicholas Reardon, with the force since December 2019, was responding to a 911 call about an altercation.
We got these grown girls over here trying to fight us, trying to stop us, trying to put our hands on our grandma. Get her now!
When Officer Reardon arrives, he sees a group of young people. Bryant, appearing to hold a knife, lunges at another girl who falls to the ground before confronting a second person near a car. That's when Reardon fires 4 shots. Bryant collapses.
She had a knife. She just went at her.
She's a kid, man.
Officers performed CPR on Bryant.
Come on, stay with Micaiah.
She was pronounced dead at the hospital.
So, Megan, just to explain this to our viewers, police are saying that officer did not mean to fire the gun. How are they explaining what happened there, that mix-up, and what are they saying about the officer involved?
Stop the car! Don't do it! Don't do it! Do it! Don't do it!
Newcastle County Police added the subtitles to the video. Officers say they opened fire because Lyman Moses drove his car directly at them.
This is dash cam video of the May 23rd traffic stop when the Jamaican immigrant was shot and killed by a New Jersey state trooper, released publicly by the Attorney General's office. But Gordon's mother, who lives in the UK, says the family had been left in the dark until they got an attorney who was allowed to see the dash cam video last week.
The trooper shot him multiple times in his body. Maurice lets off a scream, and then you watch him fall to the ground. Instead of immediately trying to get help, the officer then manhandles his bullet-ridden body and then put handcuffs on him after he had already shot him.
Additional details were released today, including the name of the trooper, identified as Sergeant Randall Wetzel of Troop D. The AG's office also laid out a timeline of what investigators say happened that morning. Around 3:13 a.m., Gordon's car was disabled in Red Bank and local police responded. At 4:54 a.m., Gordon's car became disabled again near exit 72 in Waretown, New Jersey. State police responded then. At 6:13 a.m., Gordon was pulled over for driving 101 miles per hour in Stafford. 13 minutes later, he was pulled over for driving 110 in Bass River. It was during this lengthy interaction with the state trooper that investigators say Gordon tried to get into the driver's seat of the patrol car. The two scuffled and Gordon was shot.
This matter will be presented to a grand jury.
Large crowds all the way through the entire downtown section of San Antonio. They were very friendly. And here we're approaching the Brooks Air Force Base Aero Medical Center, where the president is to make a speech dedicating the new medical center. Here the people are racing to get a glimpse of President and Mrs. Kennedy. They didn't want to miss out, so they're running as fast as they can to make sure they have an opportunity to see the president.
For us, it was an exciting time to, one, get out of school. Number two was to actually see both the president and his wife. It was like really a kind of a king and queen coming to visit.
Ladies and gentlemen, for more than 3 years, I've spoken about the new frontier.
Of course, all of us were looking around, looking at the girls and daydreaming. But as he began to speak, it really began to resonate with
The
me.
fact that we do stand on the edge of a great new era, filled with both crisis and opportunity. An era to be characterized by achievement and by challenge. This nation has tossed its cap over the wall of space and we have no choice but to follow it.
Sounds kind of simplistic, but nobody had really looked me in the eye and gave me that heave-ho to get up, get off my butt, and get on with my life.
With the vital help of this aerospace medical center, with the help of all those who labor in the space endeavor, with the help and support of all Americans, we will climb this wall with safety and with speed, and we shall then explore the wonders on the other side. Thank you.
Mr. Nixon, do you have a statement that you care to make on your arrival now?
I made a statement yesterday for the television and newspapers, which I will not repeat now. I will only say that I came to Washington for the first time in 1947 as a first-term congressman along with President Kennedy. And through the years, I was privileged to know him not only as a congressman and as a senator, and later as president, but while I and he were political opponents, we were personal friends. And I come here today with my wife to join with thousands of others, and through the medium of television and newspapers and radio, millions throughout the world, to pay tribute to a gallant warrior.
Mr. Nixon, can you comment on the double thing that has happened in Dallas today?
You're referring to the...
To the assassination of the assassin.
Yes. Well, the man who was guilty of murdering the President of the United States deserved to die. But under our system, he also was entitled to a trial. Two rights don't make a wrong, two wrongs don't make a right. And under the circumstances, I think all Americans, much as we wanted to see the President's murderer brought to justice, deplore the law being taken into the hands of a man.
Does it frighten you, sir, as an American, to see this sort of thing go on?
No, it doesn't frighten me. It concerns me. These things sometimes happen in America, and they happen in other countries. And I would suggest that all of us as Americans tomorrow, a day which President Johnson very properly has designated a day of mourning, national mourning, that we might use that day not only to mourn the death of the President, but also to pledge ourselves to fight this tendency toward hatred and violence which we saw evidenced in these last 2 days. It is a tendency that exists, and the only way it can be fought is for all of us in our daily lives to fight any evidences of hatred and violence when they occur.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough, and it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we're dealing in hate.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
Kick me. Kick me. What was that? An exhibition? We need emotional content. Try again. I said emotional content, not anger. Now try again. With me. That's it. How did it feel to you? Let me think. Don't think. Feel. It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory. Do you understand? Never take your eyes off your opponent, even when you bow. That's it.
All right, now, all through this year, China has been scrutinized and criticized by the international community for detention of Muslims. But that has not deterred Xi Jinping. He now wants to rewrite the Bible and the Quran. You heard that right. China makes everything, and that includes religious texts. China publishes the highest number of copies of the Bible, and now it wants to edit them as well. Now, you could call this censorship of religious texts. You could call this meddling in religious affairs. China plans to do it. The reports say that China wants to translate religious books. Government censors will go through them, and anything undesirable, anything that does not conform to the communist ideology, believe it or not, will also be edited out of the religious texts. Now, China calls this a religious system with Chinese characteristics. Reports say that a group of 16 experts has been appointed for this purpose. That the order to edit religious texts comes straight from the top, from President Xi Jinping himself. Last year, the Chinese president had given his officials new tools to keep all religious activity under check. Now, the State Council of China had passed what they call new regulations on religious affairs. The rules came into effect last year. So what are these rules? Now, these rules give more power to the government to control religious activities. More restrictions on religious locations and even celebrations have not been spared. Government officials in China can now dictate the timing and location of religious celebrations. The online religious activity is also very tightly watched. Any donation that is more than 100,000 yuan must be reported to the authorities. In recent years, Beijing has kept a tight watch on all religious activities. Crackdowns have escalated, churches have been shut, mosques have been bulldozed, monasteries have been placed under surveillance. Although China recognizes 5 religions, the Communist Party itself is outrightly atheist. So why crack down on religion now? The truth about modern-day China is that religious observance is on the rise. The people are turning to religion. Modernization, the economic boom and consumerism tends to have that effect. It makes people seek something higher, and then they of course turn to religion. Now, it's a trend that the Communist Party does not like. It wants complete control, and it's willing to go to any extent to achieve this control. China has become intolerant towards religion, and it looks like Xi Jinping takes immense pride in introducing such measures. China wants to challenge the international rules-based order. It is questioning conventional wisdom. In the process, it is also creating new templates. And nobody, of course, is questioning China's conduct, not on colonizing smaller nations, not on human rights violations, not on curbing religious freedom. And this silence has allowed Xi Jinping to suppress the Chinese people one step at a time.
喜欢坐火车，火车还是比较舒适一点，它的机动性也比较强。重新的考虑就是，咱们现在开始跑到300了。
Judgment, thou art fled to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me. My heart is there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me.
Here he is at last, the mystery man of India. Our first glimpse as the Rajputana came alongside at Marseille. And there's a woman of whom you've probably all read, but never seen in a picture. Miss Madeline Slade, the English daughter of an admiral, who now prefers to be known as Malara Ben. She's one of Mr. Gandhi's most devout disciples. She's leading the way ashore now, and just behind her comes Mr. Gandhi, dressed as he said he would be, in just his loincloth, even in the chilly climes of Europe. And he's carrying with him his pots and pans, which he declared at the customs. He was trotted around Marseille to several receptions and made 1 or 2 speeches which rather frightened the French authorities. But when asked to speak into the sound film microphone, he said, "I think not." And so we go on our way to England. Well, here we are at Folkestone, with the Biarritz coming alongside, and as Gandhi said, in proper English weather, pouring rain and bitterly cold. Miss Slade was the first ashore to tend to the luggage, that is, the goat's milk, etc. She was followed by Gandhi's son, and then came the little man, still scantily clad, but with an extremely wet blanket around his tiny frame. I'm sure he must have been frozen. We were in thick overcoats. He picked his way through the puddles along the quay side, and he was wearing sandals, by the way, to the waiting motor car, for he decided that he'd rather go up to London by road. He insisted on sitting up in the front seat with the driver. He said that he could see better that way. So he tucked himself in, and so off to London, whilst his followers went by the boat train. In town, quite a lot of people had waited in the pouring rain outside the Friends Meeting House on the Euston Road to see what he really looked like. But at first they were quite disappointed, because he went in the back way. But shortly afterwards he left by the front way. And then they really did see quite a lot of him, even his knees. No, he won't speak into the microphone. And so to his popular home, where we leave this bizarre little man, whose coming has caused so much comment, complete with loincloth, spinning wheel and goat's milk, feeling sure that he cannot complain of his reception or the publicity he has received, from which, by the way, we always understood that he shrank.
These pictures are 9 years old. They were found buried in a German orchard. They were taken by Nazi Heinrich Hoffmann. And here is the man whose hidden private life they show. Adolf Hitler, born Schicklgruber, late Führer of the German Reich. Hoffmann loved to present his master as a family man, quiet, unassuming. But to this hideout came his henchman, club-footed Joseph Goebbels, the voice of Nazism, later a suicide. Foreign boss von Ribbentrop, hanged at Nuremberg. On right here, Gestapo chief Heinrich Himmler, also a suicide. Here too lived one woman, Eva Braun, reportedly Hitler's wife. This was to be the ex-Austrian corporal's victory dance. Many Germans hope they are still alive. The Allies believe them dead. These pictures show how they lived.
Mecca and Medina should be today under the control of the Israelis. But because they lost the war in the first 5 days, they couldn't continue even further and that is why it is stopped. But their aim is to capture Mecca and Medina. All the holy places all over the world should be controlled by the Israelis. This is their aim. I have got these books with me, and I am sure after we finish here, I will give you the copy of the book, but you read my copy today here, and you give it back to me, because it is if Israel find it, they will buy the whole copy, and they don't want the people in the world to see this book. I will give you, it is here.
What's it?
It is a book of the Israelis, which is the teaching of the elders of the Israelis, of the Zionists. The black people in Africa, in America, must be the president of the United States of America, must be the secretary of state like Kissinger. They are more brilliant than Dr. Kissinger. Kissinger is not very intelligent. Kissinger always go to the weakest leaders. He never go to Gaddafi. He never come to General Amin. He fears us.
Sucker, you ain't nothing. You too ugly to represent us colored folks. These Africans think all of us ugly. Sucker, look at you. You out, sucker. Ali, Boomaye, Ali, Boomaye, Ali, Boomaye, Ali, Boomaye. That mean kill him. Boomaye, Boomaye. George Fulton. Boomaye, Boomaye, Boomaye for him. Sucker. There he is. Boomaye. Sucker, you wasn't nothing. You may understand.
Something you said a little earlier on about freedom of expression. So I want to ask you about what is happening in your country and homosexuality, for example, which I believe is illegal and it's punishable. I mean, why is homosexuality still illegal in your country?
These the social, cultural issues, if you like. I don't believe that in Ghana so far a sufficiently strong coalition has emerged, which is having that impact on public opinion that will say, change it. Let's then have a new paradigm in Ghana.
Is that something you would get behind?
I think that it is something that is bound to happen. And when that happens...
What's going to provoke it? What's going to make it happen?
Oh, it's the activity, like elsewhere in the world. Like elsewhere in the world, the activities of individuals, of groups.
He's money-loving. Tyler Perry became rich by committing abomination.
Yeah.
Dressing like a woman. Ain't nothing funny about it.
Go ahead, brother.
Acting like a sissy. Now up trying to be a motivational speaker, a preacher. Still making money from Medea and still trying to motivate. Motivate what? Who's motivating? Is it Medea or Tyler?
Yeah.
You trifling, no good things that play with the name of the Lord Jesus, and you preachers are scared to say anything because you feel honored for these fakers coming in your church.
That's right.
When Tyler gave Jake that $1 million, Jake's like something that came out of a carnival.
Yes, he did.
Tyler went off on that fake tongue. Then laid his hands on the devil. And Jake stood there on television. Then after he did that, he went into another thing. The devil kept uppercutting.
That's right.
That wasn't no Holy Ghost.
No.
That was $1 million ghost.
That's right.
Oh, no Holy Ghost. That was $1 million ghost. You sick religious things keep playing with God.
Yeah.
You're going to remember when your Lord appear up in the heavens.
That's right.
Go back there to the book of Matthew quickly now so I can knock off Matthew 7:21.
Back in Matthew 7 and verse 21.
Read fast.
Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord.
Who give me the correct time, brothers?
Amen.
Read quick.
Shall enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Yes.
But he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven.
What is it?
Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils? And in thy name done many wonderful works?
All right.
And then will I profess
then the Lord gonna talk.
And then will I profess unto them, I ain't never know you. Depart from me.
Get away from me.
Ye that work iniquity.
You work a bunch of sin.
Yeah.
If we ever get to racing, if we haven't run through the presidency. Very nice. But I'm afraid you don't have a photograph. All our estates, which is for you personally. Up in Scotland. My God.
In 1679, and it's actual recipe original done rather nice and behind the it's got a rifinetto, great
President, I'm delighted to welcome you and Mrs. Obama to London. Prince Philip and I are so glad that you are visiting the United Kingdom again. We have fond memories of our first meeting during the G20 conference in London in 2009. It also gave me much pleasure to welcome Mrs. Obama and your two daughters here almost 2 years ago. Your visit to this country inevitably reminds us of our shared history, our common language, and our strong intellectual and cultural links. It also reminds us that your country twice came to the rescue of the free and democratic world when it was facing military disaster. On each occasion, after the end of those destructive wars, the generosity of the United States made a massive contribution to our economic recovery. Today, the United States remains our most important ally, and our two nations contribute to the security and prosperity of our peoples and of the world through shared national interests. But our relationship goes far beyond our military and diplomatic ties. In your inaugural address, you spoke to the American people of the values that lay at the heart of your nation's success: honesty and hard work, courage and fair play, tolerance and curiosity, loyalty and patriotism, and of the sturdy alliances and enduring convictions with which your nation had met past challenges and would meet future ones too.
Thank you very much.